Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the TackleTime podcast. I am your host. My name is Nate. Tonight we have Tim Moore on the podcast. Tim is a guide. We're going to talk about his guide service a little. We're going to talk about an event that he has for kayak anglers. We're talking about some awesome fishing tips that he has. Going to talk about jigging, a special little lure that he and his buddies at another company created. So we're going to dive into all that cool stuff tonight. It's going to be really good. Before we dive into that one, you guys have heard me say it before. I've said it again. Before you go to buy tackle, check out tacklebuys.com. Tacklebuys.com hosts thousands of sale listings from across the web. So if you have a certain brand that you like, or if you have a particular piece of gear that you want to find on sale, check out Tackle Buys. If you want jigs, if you want minnows, if you want some kind of, I don't know, new net, whatever it is, take your pick, but check out Tackle Buys first before you go anywhere else and pay full price. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into this episode. Alrighty, guys, we have Tim Moore on with us today. Tim, say hello.
Hey, everybody.
Definitely excited to have you on, Tim. We were connected by a mutual friend of ours, so I'm really excited that we managed to get this one together. So I've been really looking forward. I've been watching all kinds of great stuff you're doing on social media, especially on Facebook, and some cool stuff we're going to jump into. I always try and ask, beginning an episode, what's your most fond fishing memory?
Boy, that's
I'm
a
sure there's
tough
a
question.
lot.
Yeah, that's so hard to pick. It's like picking my favorite species. It really depends on the time of year. My most fond fishing memories, I would have to say it goes, some of my youngest memories fishing with my dad. He passed away in 2012, so those memories unfortunately became a little more fonder because it's that's what I have left of him and those memories. So some of those. Yeah, I don't know if I can pick just one.
Well, I was gonna say, instead of just picking, do you have one you can share? Just even something small. We always just try and hear a little bit of story. Maybe just one simple story. Anything good?
One of my favorite memories of fishing with my dad. So we used to pier fish a lot. I grew up in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, which is right on the New Hampshire seacoast. New Hampshire only has 17 miles of coastline, but
Wow.
it's a nice little 17 miles on the Atlantic Ocean. So we would fish the piers in the Piscataqua River, which is a tidal river that separates Maine and New Hampshire. It's actually the third strongest navigable river in the world.
Oh, wow.
And it's a 6,500 acre estuary, second largest inland estuary on the East Coast. So anyway,
Wow.
we would fish from the piers and the public parks a lot for stripers, and you used to be able to catch flounder just about anywhere that had mud bottom or sand bottom. And we were striper fishing one day, fishing with chunks of mackerel, and I remember casting my line out off the end of this pier, and a seagull flew in. There's a big arc in my line, and a seagull flew into my line. And just as it flew into my line, I just reefed on the rod like I was setting the hook. You get the hook, he just flew into the line and drilled that seagull right into the water. Just splashed him right into the water. The seagull was fine. And as soon as I did it, I was like, oh my God, I'm in so much trouble. What were you thinking? And I hear this noise. I look over, and my dad's just about falling down laughing. And through his laughter, he tried to scold me, and he said, don't you ever do anything like that again. Trying to do the right thing, but he couldn't. It was one of those things like when your kid swears in public and you just can't not laugh at it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's really neat. No, that's cool. I know all of us as conservationists, we don't want to harm where we don't have to, but that's a really cool story. I'm sure it was hilarious.
Yeah, I was probably, 12 or 13 at the time. So, I didn't know any better. And it was one of those things, like as soon as I did it, I said I shouldn't have done it. And I was like, oh, did I just kill the seagull? All that stuff goes through your mind really quickly, and then it flew away, and it was fine. And I don't know if that seagull, it was chasing my bait. I don't know if that seagull ever chased another fisherman's bait.
Not after that experience.
No more flying mackerel for him.
So you're out of New Hampshire. I mean, what are you normally fishing for? What's it like up your way? What are some of your favorite species to go after up in your neck of the woods?
So being in New England, we have 4 drastic seasons, although some years it feels like we have 2, like we go right from summer to winter some years, or winter to spring, but we skip, or winter to summer, we skip
Sure.
spring and fall some years, but we do have, 4 good seasons. And so it really depends on the time of the year. We get the New Hampshire coast falls along the striped bass migration route. So
Okay.
striped bass migrate from the Delaware and Hudson rivers up into Maine, as far as up into New Brunswick, Canada, and they come right into Gulf of Maine. They come up into the Piscataqua River, and we see a lot. We see about 1/3 of the striper population comes through by the New Hampshire coast.
Wow.
So from about June 1st, they first show up between Mother's Day and Memorial Day. So about June 1st, it really gets good and fishable through. They're still catching fish right now, but the waters are cooling down, and the days are getting shorter. So those fish are starting to migrate back south slowly, or they will be here very shortly. So that's one of the staple fisheries here. I guide a lot of kayak fishermen for stripers. We catch, we do anything from light tackle, schoolie trips, catching 24, 26-inch fish in kayaks, up to the biggest one I've caught, 46 inches.
Wow. Wow, that's awesome.
In a kayak at night in the dark.
Oof, that's an experience reeling something that big into a kayak when you can't see. I can imagine.
Yeah, that's one of those memories that goes through my mind when somebody asks me to pick one, that I'm like, I wonder if that's going to be the one this time. And our fall fishery is really good. We get, we have a lot of lake trout in Lake Winnipesaukee, which, you ever seen the movie What About Bob?
I haven't, no.
It was set on it wasn't filmed there, but it was set on Lake Winnipesaukee. That's where they were supposed to be.
Okay.
So that's, a lot of people know it from that movie. But not a lot of giants, but a lot of numbers. We can go out. We caught probably 20. 2 clients yesterday morning probably caught 20 between the 2 of them in a few hours. That's a good fall fishery. And crappies. That same lake has some, crappies, 15, 17-inch crappies, which is a treat in New Hampshire. They get fished pretty heavily. No,
that's bringing that kind of a haul in is great. And I was going to ask you, is being a guide, is that your primary profession? Is that what you do, or is it something to supplement?
Yep. No, that's what I do. That, and I do a lot of work for companies like Clam Outdoors and Old Town Canoes and Kayaks, and other pro staff and sponsor positions. I do a lot of promotional work, a lot of writing.
Sure.
For them, I have a bi-weekly column that I write. All that stuff kind of supplements, but guiding is the staple.
Gotcha. Okay. So I was mentioning when we jumped on that I was really enjoying a lot of the stuff you were posting on social media, and you hosted a Kayak University. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that? Because I was super interested in hearing about that from you.
Yeah. So people in the Midwest have probably heard of Ice Team University. That's a big event that Ice Team puts on every year, and that's kind of what this event was born and modeled from. I've been to several Ice Team universities. I'm an Ice Team pro, so I've attended that many times as a pro, and it's basically, that's a much larger event. I think that's about 30 pros and 60 attendees ish, and then some sponsor guests and things like that. It's about 100 people that attend that event, and that one's at a different resort every year, and they just go out and fish together in groups, and they give seminars and meals, and it's a really cool weekend. It's Thursday through Sunday, and I really enjoy attending that event. But the first few years that I went, every year when I came home, there was a kind of like a hole there. There was nothing like that in the Northeast.
Sure.
And it's such a community building event, to spend the weekend watching these anglers come from all over, most of them strangers, and leave as friends. I was like, this is the coolest experience ever. Ice fishing isn't quite the industry here that it is in the Midwest, but you could say the opposite about kayak fishing. It's not really there what it is here. Kayak fishing is huge in the Northeast. So I decided to try and host an event similar to that one, similar format for kayak anglers.
Gotcha.
Kayak anglers have a really strong sense of community anyway.
I can attest to that.
So this was the 5th year that we did it. This year we actually extended it. It was Friday to Sunday this year. Old Town jumped on as a presenting sponsor, helped us get the cost down and add an extra day. So we were able to do both this year. So everybody shows up Thursday. We have dinner and seminars, we talk about the fishing, and then we go out and fish the next morning, fish all day on Squam Lake, which is where the movie On Golden Pond was actually filmed.
Gotcha.
On
Okay.
Squam. It's like a 1981 film. Some people might know what I'm talking about. Then we come back and more seminars and dinner, and hanging out, social time around the campfire. And then we do it again the next morning and repeat, dinner and social. We eat tons of good food, lots of camaraderie. And then Sunday morning is kind of optional fishing, breakfast and goodbyes, that sort of thing. And
Nice.
it's the same, there are some attendees and some of the guest pros that have been coming. This was their 5th year. They haven't missed it yet.
Wow.
And it's nice. The extra day this year was amazing because normally what happens, actually my girlfriend came last year for the first time, and she's kind of she is a sociologist at heart, and she has a degree in sociology, and she pointed out, she said, all these people come on Friday night, they start to get to know each other, they fish together all day on Saturday, they come back, they have dinner and seminars, they sit around the campfire, and they're like a community. They've become a community, and then they go home, but then they just go home the next day. And if we had another day that community could go back out and fish together, this time not as strangers, it would be really great. So that was the driving force. She was definitely the driving force for me to really push. And there were a couple of attendees that had been pushing for an extra day since the very beginning. And so that's when I really kind of dug in and started trying to get the cost down. Because that's the big thing here is that, I love New England and I love New Englanders, but we're kind of cheap. And we're cheap and things are expensive here.
For sure.
So we don't like to spend a lot of money on things. So anything I could do to get the cost down was really kind of pulled people in. And this was the first year we ever filled it. So
Wow.
I guess she was right. And almost everybody that was here has verbally committed to come back next year. So
That's incredible. No,
yeah,
that's
she
awesome,
definitely nailed it on the community aspect. And that's become the focus of the event is education and community.
I feel like there's a big gap in the fishing world, and that's part of what drove me to kind of start this project, this podcast, is people as fishermen really are, one big happy family kind of, as for lack of a better term, we are so connected, and I think people really forget that. And there's a lot there that I think we take for granted, and we can obviously strengthen that. Just like you said, you guys made a couple tweaks and made a really great event and made some lifelong friends, so that's really awesome. So I commend you for that. That's great, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks. It's it feels good because at the end of last year, it's been a struggle to get people to attend, other than the regulars, the couple of regulars that come every year. And last year I went into it knowing that if I didn't fill it this year, I wasn't going to do it again.
Oh, so, wow. Okay.
I guess I'm supposed to keep doing it because it filled up. COVID and everything. It's still,
yeah.
That presented a huge challenge this year. Is there's a lodge that we put all the special guests in, and there's a great room there. That's where the meals are, and the seminars are all inside. And there were 24 people there total this year, and I was like, holy crap, I can't squeeze 24 people into that space with everything that's going on. It's not safe, and I'll get crucified. I can't do it. So we had to pray for good weather, and we had everything outside.
Wow.
And thank God we didn't have bad weather, and we just set up some tents and picnic tables and held everything outside, seminars and all.
Nice. So
Yeah.
if somebody wanted to come and actually attend the event, like what's a sampling of some of the things they would learn while they're there? I mean, obviously it's called Kayak University. I'm assuming there's some form of kayak training, obviously with fishing involved. I mean, what's the scoop?
Yeah, we have, so we'll give seminars. We have various topics that like this year I gave a seminar on jigging lake trout because there's some lake trout that can be caught. We have one of the guests that comes is a part of the Hobie fishing team. His name's Eric Harrison, and he is probably the best striped bass kayak angler that I've ever known.
Wow.
He is. I mean, that guy catches more 50-inch stripers than some of the boat anglers that I know in a kayak. It's just he'll scroll through these pictures giving these seminars, and he's an amazing speaker. He's an excellent ambassador and teacher, educator. So he always gives something, striper related to some degree. This year he gave away a bunch of his secrets, but he taught a lot about side imaging. and how to use side imaging
Mm.
effectively as a scouting or a hunting tool when looking for fish and schools of fish. And he related that to stripers, but said this will also work for schools of perch or whatever.
Gotcha.
Next year, I'm pretty sure we have a tournament kayak bass angler coming. She fishes the KBF and the BASS tournaments.
Okay.
So Squam Lake is very smallmouth bass heavy. I mean, it is a well-known smallmouth bass, phenomenal smallmouth bass fishing. So to have somebody who is a dedicated bass angler there is going to be huge, because that's one of the questions we get is, okay, there's a lot of bass out there. How should I fish right now? How do I fish a drop shot? How do I fish a Ned rig? How do I, there's some other, I'm not the biggest bass angler. So, I mean, one of the guys that were there this year threw out a term, and I thought it was a joke. It was like willy-nilly or some, I was just like, what? Is that a real thing? And he's like, oh yeah, it's a real rig. I don't know what the rig, I can't even remember what it was, but, I'm just like, we need to get somebody here that can help these.
Sure.
Because there are a number of attendees that come, that's their passion is catching bass.
Mm-hmm.
My passion is jigging lake trout and trolling up salmon. I love to catch bass, but when it comes to true passion, I want people there that can educate to their passion. So seminars, the social time and the fishing time is really when people seem to get the most, because that's when they get some of these people. They hear somebody, or they know that somebody is well versed in a certain type of fishing, and they can sit right next to them, or they can follow them around all day. So I tell all my attendees every year is like, there's somebody that you want to learn from, stick to them on the water like glue.
Absolutely.
That's why they're here. They'll expect it. You're not going to offend anybody. You're not going to be stepping on their toes. This isn't a tournament. Stick to them like glue.
Yeah.
And if they tell you to go away, come talk to me and we'll fix that. But, and this year, that was the one thing we heard a lot of, is how much people learned.
That's awesome.
In those one-on-one times and being able to hang out. There was one point where there were probably 6 or 7 of us just kind of drifting down the middle of this lake, vertical jigging for lake trout, having these conversations. And, that is, anybody that knows me knows that I love jigging. I'll catch any fish that I can catch on a jig.
Oh, okay.
I love it. So everybody's staring at my rod, watching what I'm doing, and I look around, everybody's just kind of like, so what do you don't look like you're just, everybody thinks jigging, they think cod jigging, we jig for cod, you do this. Up and down, and jigging lake trout this time of year can be really, specific, almost a finesse kind of jig bite. So a lot of that, a lot of stuff that just kind of rubs off just by being there.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. If somebody wanted to come, do they have to have their own kayak? Do you supply them if they don't? And how's that work?
We don't supply. The only thing that's included, so it's one price, and that gets them their meals and lodging. They do have to bring their own kayak. There are some rental shops around. We had some folks come this year that rented kayaks. Some rented them on the way. That we had people come from as far as Pennsylvania this year.
Oh, okay.
Met some friends in Rhode Island. They picked up a couple rentals and then drove up. We had somebody that was closer to home who rented one right there at a place right down the road from the lake. So there are some rental shops available. Not all of them rent fishing kayaks, but it is better to have, if they have their own, just a little more accustomed. But bring your kayak and your fishing gear, and just I'm the one that cooks all the meals. So
nice. That must have been the ribs you were making that one night.
We do, so Thursday night we do a potluck. So there was a ton of food there. People just, there was so much food, more food than 24 people could eat. And then Friday night every year I do a fish fry.
Oh, cool.
So this year we usually have flounder. I'll catch a bunch of flounder in May, and we usually have this event typically the first weekend in June, but we had to postpone it this year. So, and with parking restrictions because of COVID, I couldn't get to the flounder grounds. So we had crappies and haddock.
Nice.
Ton of food, and then Saturday night we do a cookout. So we did burgers and chicken and roasted corn.
Awesome.
And beans, and I don't know, people just, the owner of the resort kept bringing food. She brought some like macaroni salad over, and nobody went away hungry. Most people came up for seconds, and some people even came up for thirds. So no shortage of food.
Nice. Okay, cool. Wow, man, I tell you what, if I wasn't, well, I'm from Pennsylvania, but I'm in the furthest corner you could be. If I wanted to come to your event, I would love to, but that might be on the docket one of these days for sure. So I hope you keep doing it, because it really, like you said, I really salute you for building community and building that sense of presence, where people can learn, and it's approachable. That's exactly what I think it needs to be, because fishing can be really hard, as far as not necessarily just the learning the sport, but finding someone to teach you, it can be really overbearing as far as that goes. So
yeah, no, I definitely, that's kind of where I saw the need, especially, well, you're from the Northeast. I don't know if you've ever been to New England, but we have a reputation for being having kind of a hard exterior.
Oh yes.
Especially
I know.
the fishermen here, they don't like to give much up.
No.
You got to really break into that inner circle, before they'll start giving up too much information. So it's nice to have a central place where we're not burning any spots. We're not doing anything that's going to infringe on anybody else's fishing, except maybe the people on that lake that weekend. But
sure.
But we can learn a lot. We can share, and exchange. I mean, I learn stuff every year. The stuff that I come away with from some of these pros and anglers. There's so many, such a diverse background at the event that you can't be there and not learn something.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, are you thinking about expanding the event going into next year, or kind of keeping it the same size?
Going to keep it the same size. Yeah, it's manageable. So generally, when we fish in June. This year we fished, so Squam Lake has two lakes, Big Squam and Little Squam.
Okay.
Big Squam is where the movie on Golden Pond was filmed.
Sure.
The resort where we stay is on Little Squam. This year we had to fish Little Squam both days. It was convenient because we could walk right across the road and launch at the resort beach and go right from there. So if people wanted to come back and have lunch on the beach, they could come and go as they wanted. Most years we fish Big Squam one day, which we actually have private access to. There's only one state boat ramp on the lake, and the restrictions, it wouldn't be feasible to try to have an event this size. Plus it puts us in an area that is busy.
Definitely.
So we have permission to access through a gentleman's property. He has his own beach, but it's limited logistically to get more than 12 people. It's like a one lane kind of wood road that goes down through the woods to the beach. So we have to stack vehicles one in front of the other. So getting everybody onto the water takes us about an hour and a half. And that's with, a dozen people. So we couldn't do that because his house, he rents it it's a VRBO. Vacation home. So he rents it from the weekend after we normally have the event right through the fall.
Gotcha.
So we couldn't go there this year. So next year we'll go back and we'll fish Big Squam. So we'll split the groups in half because we have the 2 days. One group will fish Big Squam one day and the other group will fish Little Squam, and then we'll flip them the next day, so everybody gets a chance to fish over there. Because this area on Big Squam that we fish, unique thing about Squam Lake is that the zoning laws on that lake require houses to leave a certain number of trees on the shore. They have to keep their houses a certain distance from the shoreline. They can only paint them neutral or natural colors that blend in with the landscape, browns and greens. So there are stretches of shoreline on that lake that you can look for a half a mile, and the only reason there's a house there is there's a dock or a boathouse sticking out.
Oh, okay.
So, and the area that we're in has tons of islands. It has one of the deeper areas of the lake that holds lake trout and salmon. So the people that have been to this event before were the ones that missed that this year the most. The ones that have never been didn't really know what they were missing. But the people that have fished it are like, is there anything we can do? And like everybody was shooting all these ideas, like, can we use the state ramp? And can we go here? And they wanted to launch at places that put us like 3 miles from that area. And I was just it's one way. So it's going to be cool next year to have everybody go there, but I don't want to increase the size just because logistics, and I think at some point we'll kind of start to dilute, the product, if there's, lack of a better term, if we start to have too many people come in, and the size of the resort, the space that we normally have, everything, and being able to feed everybody. It's just, I don't want it to get so big that we kind of lose its purpose.
No, there's always logistical constraints and things like that. So no, I was just curious, mainly out of my curiosity. Hopefully one of these days I can make it up there. That sounds like an awesome event. I'd love to attend. That'd be awesome.
It's a good time.
Now, I know you said you're affiliated with Old Town. Are you part of? Did you say that you're part of their pro staff? How does that work for you?
I am. So I'm actually their New England regional team captain.
Oh, okay.
So I don't, that just doesn't mean, I'm not like bossing anybody around, or, it just means when our regional rep needs help, It might be me that reaches out to people to help him coordinate or, take care of some of during the busier times during show season and things like that. But it is an honor to be asked by the company. So yeah, I just represent them at shows, just like any other pro staff position. I provide them with content. I try to provide them with a lot of video and photo content and some blog pieces here and there. And I work shows with our local rep. I work pretty closely with him, especially in the spring when the majority of our shows are happening.
Sure.
Yeah, and then just anything else really that they need, I try to be there for them. And they have they're an amazing company. Their kayaks are still made in Maine.
Oh, okay.
In the Old Town factory in Old Town, Maine.
Yeah.
So, it's really neat. There's a long heritage there. I think they have index cards of serial number information from canoes going back 100 years, 102 years,
Wow.
I think.
Wow.
Yeah, so they can tell you like what it was and even who made it.
No, it's wild. I was mainly curious because I actually have an Old Town kayak. I have a Predator, which has been a great kayak to me. I was just curious, so it's piqued my interest. So
yeah, no, I got into kayak fishing just before the development of the Predator. So they were leaking YouTube videos out of the development process of pro staffers, trying out some of these prototypes in pools and things like that. And that's what caught my eye. They put such a huge focus into, they had pro staffers, anglers, tournament anglers, whatever, that they were getting feedback on these boats during the development process, and actually put that kayak back into development a couple times to kind of tweak it a little bit based on
sure.
on real life info, and they really listen to the anglers, and they're still doing that today. But that's what got my attention. Like, they're not just pumping out some product that's going to sell. They want one that's going to be functional and that the user is going to be happy with, because a lot of people don't know is that Old Town offers a lifetime warranty on their hull for the first one.
Yeah, no, that's huge, especially for guys who use it a lot and unfortunately a little rough with it. But you're right.
They're made for that though.
It's a guarantee that nobody else has that I know of anyway. So
yeah, yep. I mean, if you drill holes below the water line and it leaks, you're probably not going to get warranty coverage. But if you happen to be, going along for some reason and you get a random crack or something like that, I mean, the number of times that I've seen, somebody that has had an issue like that it's been taken care of just like that. They no sooner get done complaining about it than they have shipping notification of their new kayak that is on its way. They're very generous with that warranty, and the PDL has the longest warranty in the industry, 5-year warranty on that. So, they really care about putting out a good product. It's not just about, a bottom line. They really do try to make a product that people are going to want to keep, because that's, I think, what Old Town has been known for, is that a product, that you can pass down.
For sure.
Sure. Do they keep coming out with new designs and new things that people that might want to? Of course they do. They're in the business of making money at the end of the day, but they still won't release a product that is subpar. When some other companies might rush things to production, they'll kind of take their time. And I'm a part of that development team, and so I've actually I worked on the development of the autopilot kayak. I went up last summer and got to spend a couple days fishing in a fiberglass prototype.
That's cool.
And give feedback on it, and then to see that kayak released and to point to certain things and be like, that was the thing that I didn't like about it. They changed it. Awesome. It's just, they're a great company, and really enjoy working with them.
It seems like it shows. And just from the way you talk, it seems like you're pretty passionate about working with those folks. They seem like pretty genuinely good people. So that's cool. I was just curious, and that brings us to I think a good point in the conversation, probably to kind of shift gears. And I know it before I keep you all night, because I feel like we could keep talking all night and we wouldn't get anything done. I wanted to ask you, in every episode we try and have a piece of tackle that the guest can share with the audience. So I know you said you were going to try and bring something on with us tonight. Did you have a piece that you can share with us and hopefully teach the audience how to use?
I do. A little bit of shameless self-promotion, but mostly because I believe in it. So a couple of years ago, I also work with a local company called Daddy Mac Lures.
Okay.
Make a lot of saltwater lures. They're pretty well known in the striper community here, especially there's a commercial fleet down in around Cape Cod area that they use a lot of their lures. You can find them in a lot of Bass Pros around here, and so we developed a lure that I thought would work really well for lake trout. It's called the Nervous Minnow. Whoops, and I'll hold it up here.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So it's a jointed leg jointed jigging spoon. Here's one here out of the package. And
Nice.
so, being a fan of jigging lake trout, I wanted, I'm always thinking about how the lure that I have that works the best, like how could I make that lure better? What would make that lure better? And they made a solid version of this. And I said, if we could just kind of tweak that a little bit and put a joint in it. And they just jumped on it. And that was the second lure that I developed with them. And they sent me some prototypes, and I got them in the winter. And so I messed around with them a little bit through the ice and caught some lake trout on them. And then they were released the following spring. And so our lake trout jig bite starts usually, safe to say, August. Some years July, but August and September are good months to vertical jig lake trout. By the time August rolled around, I was getting a call from them saying, if you need any of these, you better hurry up and get them because the commercial striped bass fleet got wind of them and they bought us out twice already.
Wow. That's great news for them. That's awesome.
So then we got them and started fishing them for lake trout. And, the first season, we were just absolutely crushing fish on that. I went up to Vermont to film an episode with a friend of mine who's a charter captain up on Lake Champlain. There's some big lake trout up there. I had run into him over the wintertime, told him this lure was coming out. They really wanted to try it. He said, come up. I'll take you out for 2 days. We'll film. And so we showed up, and he said, I know you're going to want to get that Nervous Minnow. That's what it's called, the Nervous Minnow, which there's a story behind that, which I'll tell you after. He said, no, you're going to want to get that Nervous Minnow, get a couple fish on camera with that. But at some point, you're probably going to want to switch to a Spro bucktail with a curly tail grub on it because that's kind of the staple up here. And I was like, whatever, man, you're the guide up here. I know I'm a guide. Don't guide the guide. If we can get a couple fish on my lure, the company would love it. I'd love it. It'd be great. And now I don't make any money off the sale of these lures. I just don't pay for them when I need them.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
People are like, oh yeah, you're just trying to sell lures. I'm not trying to sell anything because I don't make any money off of them. But an hour into the trip on his boat, everybody on the boat was fishing Nervous Minnows, and he was asking me how many I could leave behind because they were just
wow.
You can go on my YouTube channel and watch that episode. We just crushed it. And I've since, just given them to people or told people that they work, or we'll get people on my home lake that see us out there with them, and we're just smashing lake trout when other people aren't. And so they'll be in the tackle shops, looking for them. And a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, Dan McFetridge, he's the digital marketing manager from Old Town. Him and we went back up to Lake Champlain with our kayaks and went out for 2 days fishing up there for lake trout. And about halfway through the full day that we fished, I kept asking, what'd you get that fish on? He'd say, oh, Nervous Minnow. And I was fishing with a Nervous Minnow and a shad, some big soft plastics near the bottom. And after a while, he wouldn't switch.
Wow.
He fished the shad a little bit, and he'd go right back to the Nervous Minnow because he was so confident in it. And, that is what he fishes for lake trout now.
Wow, that's wild. Holy cow.
It's, you just got to get out there and fish it. Any big game fish species that can be caught on a jig, I think will eat that. We have a bunch of different colors. We have 2 sizes. There's a 1.4, which is the one I fish the most.
Okay.
The big one I showed you is the 2.8 ounce. So they're heavy, but these fish are down 190 to 100 feet. So it gets down there fast. And it kind of resembles, we have a lot of rainbow smelt and alewife. So it kind of resembles the size and profile of a smelt. So,
gotcha. Okay.
It works really well. It's been a huge success. I catch the majority of my lake trout on it. No matter where I go so far, no matter where I've fished for them, I've caught lake trout on them. And but it's not, when most people think about jigging a spoon, they think they rip it up and let it flutter down. And that's the one thing about this lure, because it's jointed, is you can't let it free fall on the jig. Because if you jig it up and then let it free fall, it has a tendency to flip up at the top and it hooks the line and it foul hooks a lot. So I just tell everybody, rip it up fast, down slow, just lower it down. They're going to hit it on the drop anyway. So at least if you don't let it free fall, you feel those bites. You'll feel the weight come off it, or you'll feel them whack it, as you're lowering it down. So let it down as fast as you can without dropping any slack in your line. And
Gotcha.
really does catch fish. The name, I was actually fishing in Minnesota with a good friend of mine, Jeff Anderson, and his brother Joe, and a friend of mine from here, Chuck. We call him Macho Nacho. It's his nickname. He got that nickname on the same trip. We were fishing on Gull Lake, and we were rigging or basically drop shotting with live bait for walleye. And you knew when you were about to get bite because you'd get a nervous minnow. You'd feel your minnow get real nervous and start really swimming erratically. And that was the day just before everybody would get bit. They'd say nervous minnow, and I said, I'm going to name a lure after that.
That's an awesome name. I love that. That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, it's been good.
So let me just make sure that I understand. I always try and make sure that, whatever advice that you have for fishing this is very succinct and kind of broken down. So you'll put it out there in deep water. That's exactly what this lure is a deep water lure. And then you're gonna pull it up, and you're just gonna let it go nice and slow without getting too much slack in your line. Is that correct?
Yep. Keep it above the fish. I always keep it above, we were generally fishing for schooling lake trout, so I keep it up above them. If I'm fishing in the wintertime, I'll keep it up high so they have to work for it a little bit and commit when they come up. So, I'll rip it up fast and lower it down slow, and then I might bounce it a couple times trying to get that, the bottom of that lure to kind of swing a little bit like that, dance around, and then bounce it back up again. It really just, my dad had a saying, he said, Timmy, the fish pick the winners, and so I have a series of I have my baseline jigging that I do, and then I'll start there, which seems to work the most for me, and then I'll start to mix it up and add different cadences in, because some days my baseline doesn't work. Some days they want to chase it. Some days you got to reel it up away from them. That's how Dan was getting his fish to bite on Champlain. He'd jig it down near the bottom a little bit, and those fish weren't as thickly schooled as they are in Lake Winnipesaukee. It was more onesie, twosies, but they were much bigger fish. They were our fish are 3 to 5 pound average. There they were 6 to 8 pound average.
Gotcha.
Some of them were bigger than that, so they weren't coming in big schools. But he'd jig it down near the bottom a little bit, and then if they didn't react, he'd start reeling it up really fast, about 15 feet off bottom. And then he'd work that one fish that came, we were watching it on the fish finder, and he'd work that one fish that came and chased it, and then he might stop it and jig it and whatever. But yeah, you just gotta mix it up.
Is there certain instances, whether that be a lake that doesn't have a lot of depth, I'm trying to give somebody who's, thinks that this is a great lure, they'd love to try it, but not sure if their typical fishing spots would work for it. So do you have a criteria where you think that this would really work with them? As far as maybe depth or,
not so. It really depends on what you're targeting. The two main species that this lure is used for the most, just because I think of the location, is lake trout and striped bass.
Okay.
And the vertical jig bite for striped bass is sometimes in 15 to 20 feet of water.
Gotcha. Okay.
And they're on, they might be on schools of mackerel. So we'll fish, we make a green one, and you fish that green one when they're chasing mackerel, or sometimes they'll be chasing squid. So we made a pink one to try to match the hatch a little bit, and whatever it is they're chasing, we try to match that color. And it's not always in a deep water. It works really well in deep water because it sinks so fast. If you try to fish the Leech flutter spoon that for the clam mix is one of my favorite lake trout lures, but to try to get that 1/4 ounce Leech flutter spoon down 100 feet would take a day and a half to get down there. And it's so far down, it's so much line behind it, and sometimes we're at 120 feet of water.
Mm-hmm.
So having a nice heavy jig that gets down there really quick and holds that line nice and tight at that depth, so you can really feel, you can feel it when they brush it up against the line. My clients will say, it feels like they're just like swimming up against it, and they probably are.
Okay. No, that's good info, because like I said, I try and make this approachable, try and make it easy for somebody to kind of understand and maybe jump into. So no, that's all great info. Do you have anything else, any other tips or guidelines you think somebody wanting to dive into these would need to know? Besides get out there and use it.
You pair it up with the right rod. You know, a 7-foot medium rod with fast action is probably going to be your best bet.
Okay.
Something with a lot of snap.
Sure.
It doesn't load up too much with that. You know, it's 1.4 ounces, it's a lot of weight.
Yeah.
You know, you put that on your regular bass rod and it's going to load that rod up pretty good, and you're not really going to be able to make it do much or feel much.
Sure.
So pair it up with the right rod. You know, my YouTube channel, there is a ton of videos on there of me using this for lake trout, from Lake Winnipesaukee to Lake Champlain, a couple of different Lake Champlain, 3 or 4 different Lake Champlain videos using that lure. So if you want to see it in action, people can just go to the Tim Moore Outdoors Fishing YouTube page and YouTube channel and just watch some of those videos. I think there's even a lake trout playlist, and then just, I would love to see pictures of walleye or whatever caught on it. You know, I think that would be really cool. I'm sure it has potential other than what it's mostly used for right now.
Sure. No, that was one of the first things I thought of, was I was thinking that might be a decent walleye bet, you know, to try and see if that works for them. But no, so where can people find out about you? I know you said you have your YouTube channel. Obviously, you have your guide service. You know, you have Kayak University. You got a lot of places where people can find out about you. Can you rattle them off for everybody listening?
Yeah, I mean, if you go to timmooreoutdoors.com, that's my website.
Okay.
You can pretty much, there's links to my Facebook and Instagram. My YouTube channel is there, and there's a page on the website for Kayak University as well. So it's probably the easiest way to get to all my different channels would be just to go to my website.
Now, if somebody was interested in, you know, booking a seat or a reservation for Kayak University, is that open already for next year?
It's not. So what we do is we open it to the attendees first, and we give them a month. They get first dibs to come back if they want to come back.
Gotcha.
And it looks so, they've all said they were coming back this year. We'll have to see. You know, I know things change, and you know, it's we got to get through winter and everything, but they'll have a month. So within the next couple of days, they'll get an email saying that they can hold their space for next year. And if they wanted, they'll have a month to do that, and then we'll open it up. So probably in about 30 days, it'll be open to the public.
Nice.
Whatever remaining spots are left.
That's awesome.
To be able to scoop up. Yeah.
Well, no, this has been really great. I loved hearing about the Kayak University you're putting on, and also about the lure you had to share with us tonight. So I'm really happy that you and I finally connected and were able to do this. So thank you very much for coming on. I'm definitely excited to have this and get this out to everybody else. So thanks for coming on with me tonight. Yeah,
thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to help out, and it's good to see more fishing stuff being created.
Definitely, totally agree. Well, perfect, man. We're going to cut it off here. So thank you so much again. I'll put links for all the in the podcast or everywhere for everybody to find you, so they can definitely go and check you out.
Awesome. Thanks, Nate.
Cool, man. Thanks.